Hi there, this is Pastor Dan Renshaw, pastor of Calvary Chapel in Cle Elum, Washington. We've been going through the book of Genesis in our Wednesday night Bible study, and I'd like to share with you a few thoughts that come from that study that relate to the secret of Joseph's success. Joseph was the 11th son of Jacob in the Old Testament, and we're told that he was Jacob's favorite. Well, he had 10 other older brothers, and you can guess that they weren't too happy about that. So they conspired against Joseph when their dad wasn't around, and they sold him as a slave to some merchants, and off he went to Egypt. Now, while he was in Egypt, he was bought by a fellow named Potiphar, a government official, and put to work managing Potiphar's household. This is where I'd like to pick up the story and read to you from Genesis 39, 1-6. The passage says, starting in verse 1, Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man. He was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all he did to prosper in his hand. So Joseph found favor in his sight and served him. Then he made him overseer of his house, and all that he had he put under his authority. So it was from the time that he had made him overseer of his house and all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in the house and in the field. Thus he, that is Potiphar, left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he did not know what he had except for the bread that he ate. Notice the secret of Joseph's success. The passage says the Lord was with Joseph. Even though he had been rejected by his own brothers, treated cruelly, uprooted from his home, forced into slavery, Joseph refused to cop an attitude. He could have sulked and complained and become bitter over his plight, but he didn't. There is no record of Joseph ever complaining about the treacherous things that had been done to him, or even that he questioned God. He suffered in silence, and even further on when he was accused by Potiphar's wife, he didn't answer in his own defense. Joseph came to realize in time to come that this awful deed was actually a part of the purpose and plan of God for the preservation of his family. He accepted his circumstances and trusted in God. He saw him as a victor, not a victim. Joseph at this time in his life was a tremendous example, and a great example, I think, for us. One of our problems is our nearsightedness. We never see what is far off, but only that which is near. This is a problem in our Christian walk, because God is often working out processes in our life which will not come to fruition until further down the road. As we are going through these present situations, we can't see what may happen further on. We don't realize that God has this problem all worked out and planned, and years from now, he may very well, and we may very well see what he's been doing. But in the meantime, we question God and we give him a bad time. You know, God must get tired of our unfaithfulness. We are so nearsighted that we can't see how this is all going to work out. And so we often complain and we question God about what he may be doing. Later on, with hindsight, we can look back, and what we thought at the time were boils were really blessings. There came the day when Joseph looked back and said, wow, every step of the way God's hand was on me. I'm sure that Joseph must have wondered where God was when his brothers sold him, and he cried and he begged for their mercy. Even in the difficulties that Joseph will experience later on in this chapter with Potiphar's wife, he might have asked, where's God? Well, he's right there plotting and planning to work out his purpose. You can see this in verses 3-6. God is beginning to bless Joseph in these new but very trying circumstances. And though his trials aren't over yet, since this is really a temporary prospering, as we'll see, God is clearly involved in it, which tells me that he will continue to be involved even when the circumstances turn sour again. Guys, are we dealing with the hand that we've been dealt with properly? Are we like Joseph on the job? Or are we liabilities to our employers? I realize that every employer is not always a fair employer. Certainly, I've worked for at least one unfair employer in years past, but most have been fair. And usually, if you give a fair shake, you get one back. And if you don't give a fair shake, you shouldn't expect one back. So let's not be liabilities. Let's be the best employees that we can be so that everything we do prospers for our employers. How about in our relationships, whether it be with members of our families or close or not so close friends? Are we seeking to be the best and kindest and most respectful fathers or mothers or siblings or sons and daughters or extended relatives as we can be? If we are being treated unkindly or unfairly by a member of our family or a friend or an acquaintance, are we responding in like kind, or are we seeking to be everything that God would have us be in that relationship and in all relationships? I'm sure it was extremely tough for Joseph, tougher than any of us will probably ever experience in this life, but he chose the God-honoring path. And in the end, he ended up not only being vindicated, but used by God to bring blessing, not just to his own family, but to the rest of the known world at that time. May it be so with us as we surrender our lives to Jesus and to his plan, even and especially when others are treating us terribly and things don't look like they're going to get any better. Entrust yourself to Jesus and refuse to give in to the discouragement and the anger, because your story isn't over yet. These tough times are temporary. A new and a brighter day is dawning. God is molding you and shaping you for the purposes he has for you in the future. Surrender to him and his purposes, and he will honor and bless you as time goes by. Thanks for listening, and I hope this helps. This is Pastor Dan Renshaw with Calvary Chapel, Cle Elum, Washington. May the Lord richly bless you.